Perfect. Good morning. How are you? Happy Monday. Is it a happy Monday? Do you reckon
It is a happy Monday.
Well,
for some people it will be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely, mate. We're going to be talking about disappointment, actually. So if you're feeling a bit deflated today, then this could be the place for you. So welcome to Getting on Track Together. I'm Nathan.
Junior, yeah, that's me.
And we have our very special guest today with us as well, Phil.
Phil Potter.
Yeah, I like very unassuming, mate. That's a good thing. So we have our guest coming up. We're going to be talking to Phil throughout the morning, but then we've got an interview coming up later as well, which is very, very interesting. And we are here in the community lounge at Runcorn Station, coming live from Runcorn Station. Thanks to Avanti for letting us use this space, and very special thanks to Laura as well as the community champion. She's done amazing things here. And this is a really nice, warm, just warm, isn't it? It's a nice warm space. Yeah. It's got Wi-Fi and aircon when you need it. And it's just to let you know, last week when we did the show, we didn't have announcements running through. But this week, you'll hear probably every so often a little announcement go off. That's because we're live, man. It's authentic. We are actually in the lounge. So we have train announcents coming from when the trains are coming.
Oh, not coming. Another cancelled train. More
yeah, maybe more disappointment. Yeah, we have got this week's topic that we're going with it later on is disappointment. So we will come to that. And if you're, like I said before, if you're feeling a bit deflated, then maybe you want to drop us a comment. This is about being interactive. And there's our announcement lady right now, Lucy. Wonder which one that is. Oh, maybe nothing on that one. So, what we start off with on each day is a quote of the day. A quote of the day. So, last week we had a great one from Tim Firth, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it was along the lines of treating people. See how someone treats someone when they don't need them. How kind they are when they don't need anything from that person. And it was his late father's quote, which I thought was really apt and profound as well. Yeah. That was cool. Yeah. And then this week we have a great quote again, and from our guest again, which I really like as well. So, do you want to say what the quote was? You've got it ready, haven't you?
I've got it ready.
You've got it ready.
I can never remember quotes.
Yes.
They're always paraphrased. I'll try and get this one right, with the exception of one word.
Yeah, we're going to miss one word out. Yeah.
It's from Lester Freeman, who was a sage-like character in The Wire.
Yeah.
Alive, Jimmy. That is to Jimmy McNulty, the guy who's talking to. You know what that is? It's that happens when you're waiting for the things that never come.
Yes, and we all liked that as soon as you said that, didn't we?
No, it's got this sort of sense of there being the potential for continuing disappointment, unless you get to try and enjoy the moments that are actually happening around you there and then.
Yes, I like that. We're going to have some wise words from Phil, as we can see, as we're through these next 2 hours, couple of hours or so.
Well, he's learned.
He's learned, yes, a learned man. And actually touching on that with that quote, it really ties into what we're doing right here, because what I was going to put a shout out really. So with doing what we're doing here, we're trying to do something which we believe is a good thing, which needs doing. There is a stigma attached to talking about ourselves, our well-being, our mental health state. And our thoughts and feelings, and not just in men, but especially is prevalent in men. So by us talking, having these conversations, it's part of trying to stop the stigma that's associated with that. And the stigma it's not just a phrase, stop the stigma. It's something that you're talking about life-changing and life-saving. Because sometimes people make very difficult decisions, tragic decisions, because they haven't felt able to talk to somebody. So what we're doing here is trying to have these conversations, and we hope that you can relate to some of it, which brings me to starting things off and the disappointment side of it. So what we've done here is we've started off, and we haven't got all the right gear yet, we're just winging it, on a wing and a prayer, so to speak. Yeah. So we are putting a shout out there that if you have any bits of equipment, recording equipment, film or audio lying around, or somebody's got a bunker full of high-spec Macs, anything like this, then please get in touch, and maybe we could, we'll put a mention for you as well if you want to. but we're very much appreciative of it, definitely. So how was your weekend then, Junior, this weekend?
Well, it's been interesting to say the least. We went out on Friday with a lads' night out with the cricket. Phil is now an outlaw. In you know, not an outlaw.
No, really,
Yeah. And we went to Chester, and we had a curry.
Nice.
And I was mindful that the next day I was out. I had a gig because my partner, my singing partner, I must say, Debbie couldn't make the gig, so I had to go and play the gig. So I had to sing for 45 minutes. But I remember saying to Phil previously a few weeks back that I'm gonna pace myself. Which I didn't pace myself that time. I had to go back to disappoint Phil by not turning up for a gig. We had to go to Liverpool. Right, so. And then Sunday was played in the freezing cold. I played in Wimbledon. So it was a decent, a quiet weekend. You know, in respects of stuff, but it was still good. And well, we won't mention what happened on Saturday. We leave that for another part of the show later.
Okay, I like that. I'll wait for that one.
So how was your weekend?
My weekend, as you were just, I knew it was going to come to me. And I was thinking, what have I done this weekend? I can't really, I'm struggling to remember. But obviously a big part of the weekend for most people, or well, at least for a lot of the people in England, would been the football, right? So I did actually catch a bit of the football. I've not been watching it really. I know that's really strange for a lot of you. But yeah, so there's a lot of disappointments, I think, around that, wasn't there, the football over the weekend? Well, at least if you were English. Maybe for people who weren't wanting England to win, then happy, you know.
I know. I've got to say, my behaviour on Saturday night was disgraceful, and that's all I'm going to say.
Oh really? Everyone's sitting watching this. No.
No, it wasn't in a manner of disrespect.
No, of course.
It was just
getting into it.
Yeah, I was getting into it, and to myself, it was I was on the floor. I was praying. I was all kinds. It was everything. Yeah, it was everything. Yeah.
My I always used to be like that when we were watching the match. To the point that Zach, who's 11, you saw him last week. So he still says, "Oh, Dad, do you remember when he used to get all upset and angry and like this at the TV?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what people do when they're watching the football." You know? What about you, Phil? How was your weekend?
Well, as you probably already realised, I was out having a few beers and eating a curry on Friday night with Junior and his mates, and I can only say that went very well. And it was very pleasant, and we managed to get home in one piece and all the rest of it.
Which is always a bonus.
It's always a bonus. But other than that, I've got to say it was a relatively quiet one, but I did some bits and pieces, a little bit in the garden.
Oh yeah, perfect. Very good for you.
And I always do Spanish lessons. I've been learning Spanish for about 9 years now, and I do Spanish lessons every single day.
That's fantastic.
Sí, señor. Estoy tratando de aprender español.
I've started him off now.
Well, you've got to do a bit, haven't you?
Well, that's it, and I think that's kind of, you know, and interestingly, you do use Spanish, and some days it is disappointing. You think, have I learned nothing? And other days you feel a bit invigorated and think, this is going well. And in some respects, it's that texture which adds to the dimension. So I always do that, no matter what. That's happened. In fact, I did that this morning before I even came over here. So that's
really cool.
Yeah.
I think
Go on then. Just the fact that he's got to have 2 breakfasts. So he's probably had 2 breakfasts before he come here as well.
Little secrets. When you said about the disappointments, I think one of the we'll touch on it a bit more after, but one of the things about the disappointments, and when you have those days that aren't as invigorating, the trick is to then pull something out of it, isn't it? And to think, right, what was it from that day? You know, what can I take from my day that was good, that I've done well? Even if I say to people, you know, even if it's something tiny, even if it was having your shower that you were struggling to do, or whatever it was, something tiny from your day that you can go, I did that, you know.
Oh, and understanding it, you know, as you come to a bit, I used to teach, and I think one of the most important things about learning is to be able to critically examine what you've done.
Yes.
Yeah. How you achieved it, how you went about it, how, it made me feel bad, but why did it make me feel bad? That made me feel, what was the reason it made me? Try and gain an understanding of your own approach to things, your own understandings and your own agency within that.
Yes,
And the elements for which you have little agency, the things which you have little control over. And trying to get to grips with that. I says this constant little bit of self-analysis is a really useful tool.
Very much, totally agree with you. We're all about that with It's Good to Talk, something's just dropped, maybe
Christmas
there.
just collapsed.
One thing I was going to talk about quickly was one good deed. So this is an opportunity for you to think of anything you can think of. It could be somebody else has done, you've seen someone else do something, pick something up for somebody. It could be anything you've seen in the last week or so where you think, oh, do you know what, I did that, or somebody did that. So this is a tiny one that just came because I wasn't prepared for coming up with one myself.
Yeah.
When I was walking down the town a few days ago, there was a lady and she was struggling with a shopping cart thing, and she dropped a walking stick. So, and I heard it, went back and picked it up. Yeah. But she was so surprised,
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. No, it's okay. That's a normal thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So it could be something little like that,
Yeah.
or it could be something. Have you got anything you can think?
Virtually always tell you the truth, and I think it's these micro pleasantries which can be really important in life.
Oh yes, massive.
And it's as simple as just smiling at a person.
Yeah.
And smiling at a person. It's surprising how many people smile back at you.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a social exchange, and it's part of the connecting mesh in the world that we live.
Yes,
Rather than blanking people to people in London often think you're a bit strange when you do that, but so what?
You
Smile.
push it,
Yeah, so and I think I do that all the time, and I think it's a habit of mine.
Yes.
This morning coming here actually, I did a little assistance to someone, very minor, but again it makes you feel connected. I was getting the train here, and there was a young man on the platform we were on, and I just happened to notice he was looking at the timetable, he was looking at his phone, and I said, are you confused about something? And he said, yeah. And as it happened, his English wasn't his first language, so he was sort of struggling a bit with the information he had. We've all experienced that when we've been.
Yeah, definitely.
And he wanted to get to Edinburgh, where he was stood on the London train platform.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, so and the Edinburgh train was coming, so he got in there, and off he went, waving away to me, and there's no skin off my nose whatsoever. No. Just happened to notice something that just happened to be next to me. Could have ignored it. I think I didn't. So I moved on.
I'm not. Phil told me something on the way here in the car of a good deed that he did, and you can't remember, can you?
No.
Well, I'll just mention the bike. But that was I'll leave that we could. I mentioned the bike, and and it's I mean that was a exceptional, because most people, I think us three would probably do exactly the same as what Phil did. You know what I mean? But it's a story I won't air it. It's a story that we could talk about privately. You know what I mean? It's because you don't know.
I think when you said before about the smiling part, we touched on this last week, and I think that something that there are many reasons why people don't go with it. So I live in Fudsham currently, and we were doing it every day. I used to do the school run, and the school run was just walking to school with my son. And there was a lady and her daughter that we used to see every day. So as I was on my way back, and I used to morning, smile. And at first, it was very much like, oh, why are they talking to me? Like that. Almost. I wouldn't say fear as such, but there was something there. And then it required me just being nice, not pushing and not being a strange stalker or anything. But then after a while, it came to the point of then it reciprocating.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I find that there is this fear, also of how people will react, and then also you've got the part that so many people are just struggling with their everyday existence, aren't they? You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. You've got to try and be respectful of people as well. And I do actually struggle a bit with this because, particularly with younger, well, women generally, but younger women particularly, who are on their own, walking towards you, and women have often find themselves with difficulties with blokes being too forward and inappropriate. And women wonder where's this going. And I think that presents a problem. And sometimes I think, oh dear, you know, I'm just being friendly. I'm not pushing it, but I'm wondering, have I just got them panicking? And I do worry about that.
There's always a balance, I suppose, definitely. But we don't know who's got what people have got.
No, exactly. You've got to be careful. As you say, my good deed was putting up the rattan set. Getting it outside. Because I know my wife, she went out and I thought, I've got to do it now because if I wait until she comes home, then I'll be getting all kind of directions. So I thought, I'm going to do it as a surprise. So me and my stepdaughter's boyfriend, we had to dismantle it, one leg, got it outside, set it all up, came in, and when she came in, she was like, "Oh, you've done it!"
Fantastic!
So brownie points,
brownie points, smiles on the faces.
That's it.
Not all good deeds go well, and once just popped into my mind is that it says no good deed goes unpunished. I think and a couple of weeks ago, I live in Waddington, and I was walking into town to go for a pint actually. And as I walked in, James Lee House is in Waddington. It's a sort of halfway house, and so there's a number of people in there with various problems, and you do bump into people there who are not helping themselves to the best of their abilities or their capabilities at the time. Maybe I don't know whether they have those capabilities sometimes, but nevertheless, I bumped into one a couple of streets away. And I think he'd had a few, what he'd had, I don't know. But he'd clearly collapsed and smacked himself on the floor and knocked himself out. Because I saw this pile of something on the floor. So I arrived and thought, he's injured, I have to help him. And I did my best to help him, got hold of an ambulance, checked that he looked like he hadn't broken anything, he was bleeding back into his head. But he had a badge on, and it had Tourette's.
Right.
And he clearly didn't look after himself very well. And the whole time I was trying to assist him and ask his name, trying to check out whether he was hurting. The whole time he was shouting and abusing me. And you think, oh God, what have I got myself into here? But anyway,
you did the right thing.
But then the ambulance arrived quite quickly because at the same time I'm thinking, I could be sat here 5 hours now.
Getting abused.
But actually the ambulance turned up and they took over and I walked around.
But you did the right thing, right? And who knows what impact that can have. We touched on that last week. We never know the impact that when we have those, we take those actions.
Well, you kind of hope that when somebody gets picked up by the ambulance services who's got the kind of issues that he looked like he probably had, that they arrive in the hospital, they don't just stick a plaster on it and chuck him back out. You hope.
Well, unfortunately,
you hope that they get drawn into the net and are looked after better.
Yeah, unfortunately, the system is quite, and we will have guests coming in. But the system, unfortunately, is broken to an extent. This comes back again to us as normal human beings. Each of us, yourself watching. Sometimes we feel as people that we are inconsequential. We're not important. We can't have an impact. And that's far from the truth. And as the system is, well, it is at the moment, it comes down to us as people, doesn't it? To then sort of pull together as much as we can, help each other, I think. And that's the way forward.
I think it's important to remember that people like that bloke whose name I can't remember, I think that's been Sean actually. But anyway, that guy, okay, he had a particular set of issues. But I think a lot of people are much closer to having those potential long-term issues, then you realise everything, your life, sometimes everything feels just hunky-dory and wonderful. And I don't think it takes as much as people think to end up on the wrong side of the line.
Oh no, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're only,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
there's a few sayings about that.
Yeah,
aren't
that's
there?
right, yeah.
Only ever one payday away from
Yeah,
being
there's
sort
those kind of things.
Yeah. So,
Well, you're
yeah,
dead
some,
right,
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's not just in that sense either, is it? It's on the social side of it as well, isn't it?
So Sean, whilst he had his particular issues, but you look at Sean, you think, oh, okay, that was his name, is what springs to mind.
Yeah.
That could be me.
Yeah.
That could be you.
Easily.
That could be someone from my family.
Yeah,
Could be
yeah,
you.
of course.
So, in helping, you're actually
Yeah.
reaching out to everyone in the community and yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I like to do is we do fist bump moments.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
that's sorted.
Yeah, that's it.
I
You
hope-
can't take things for granted.
I hope my
No,
grandkids don't see that.
yeah.
So we're coming up to time really. We're getting close to the interview time now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say again thank you to Avanti and to Laura, who's community champion with Avanti. And thank you to Phil, who has joined us today for this interview. And let me just, one second, the thing about it being live, guys, is it's all very relaxed and non-pressured. And I've put another phone down somewhere. So, okay. Oh, is this it? There we are.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's all live, people, so, you're going to be...
So you've got the questions there, haven't you, as well?
Yeah,
You've
we
got
have,
a couple of
yeah.
questions,
We
So
have
we sent you
we've
over
got
we sent you the questions, didn't we, Phil?
You
Did you
did?
have a chance to have a look at them?
We've
I did.
got-
Oh no, I did read them. I deliberately didn't keep notes on them
No,
because
just gives you an idea.
I just
really.
thought, yeah,
Yeah.
If you wanted to, it's just natural.
to see how it, So some ideas sprang to mind,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe some of them will re-emerge,
Yeah.
and maybe
So-
you'll see me going, I know I think something about this, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. Let it just all come naturally.
Yeah, and
That's it.
we've one of the things that we find useful is that if you see us jotting anything down, it's not like your personal details. Or anything.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are mates and everything, but it's just anything that you come up with that we think, oh, we'll come back to that. Sort of thing. So first off, then, Phil. So tell us a little bit. Well, it doesn't have to be a little bit, really. Tell us how you ended up here. Where you are now, and obviously here as well, on getting on track together.
Well, how I ended up here in the shorter form sense is that, as you rightly say, I'm mates with Junior, and we've been mates since we were 16ish, and haven't always been dead close in all that time, but we've always been. But there's never been, when we are together, there's never a gap between us in terms of our friendship. Yeah?
No,
It's one of those friendships that has because of various things to do with geography and life and what have you,
Yeah.
has been closer and further apart, but only in terms of distance and others of the time mates, but never in terms of actual friendship. So it's been one of those it's one of those long-term friendships which just goes on. In fact, it's probably my oldest friend, really. No, not my oldest friend.
Yeah.
So Junior said he was doing this, and because he knew of my experiences to do with my career, which is more like careering rather than career, he thought maybe I'd have something to offer, which kind of brings me to the other bit. Well, how I arrived where I am, well, like very many people, you start off going through school and what have you. But the thing that I never realised was an opportunity, and felt disastrous at the time, was we grew up in a family with a mother with quite severe mental health problems. Junior knew my mum, and she never really got to grips with those problems. Not full. She was surrounded by a family that supported her, loved her. My father, was especially strong around this area, and we must spend quite a lot of time in and out of mental health institutes. And my father always meant that we made sure that we visited and spent time with my mother when she was away. So you get to see an awful lot, and of course kids are cruel to kids, and mental health, in those days it was, because I'm 61.
You're not 61.
As a child, that was your mum's a loon, and that kind of stuff. I'll leave it there. You know the stuff that comes along. And of course, you used to get that bullying, that sense of separation, and an awkwardness descends upon you. You know your life's a little bit odd to other people. Well, it doesn't feel that odd to you, but because it's the life you're living. And we had a supportive family, and a father who was determined not to let the family be more disrupted than it needed to be. So a lot of praise to them for that, and my mother, really, because she never made a big thing of it. It was there, but she never made a big thing of it, really. But we got to meet lots and lots of people in hospital who were away from their families with mental health issues, and we got to see various things which in some respects would be disturbing. But there was a sort of normality that came with it. And the most important things, we sort of realised as children that these people weren't the pejorative stereotypes that didn't belong in the categories, belonged to the pejorative stereotypes that people used about those kind of people in these places. But actually deeply human people. Deeply human people who wanted to reach out and be friendly, and were so pleased when there were children in the place, and we were amongst the few children that actually went into the hospital to visit our mother, and so we were treated very well by these people who had quite severe mental health problems. What came from that though was a couple of my mum's very closest friends were from Winnick, were in Winnick in Warrington, and they two of them particularly really learned to control their particular set of issues. I'm not saying that they went away. I'm not sure that they ever really go away for some people, but they do learn how to manage them. And two of them particularly, I think that's exactly what they did. And they needed a time away, they needed some support, they needed some medication to some degree, but they got through that, then learn how to watch for the signs, watch for the triggers, learn how to cope with the triggers early, and go on to live life never returning to the mental health institutions, learning to know when to ask a doctor for a bit more support, and went on to have very decent lives. Those two friends are both dead now, as is my mother actually, who died from dementia at the end, which is not a pretty sight, I've got to say. But then like many people, I went through various types of jobs. I went on to Polytechnic to do engineering, failed at that. Really, I didn't like it. I don't know why I was doing it really.
Phil, could I just, without going on from this, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things about this. If that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, with your mum, so how did that, when you say mental health issues, obviously you only share what you want to share. But so how did that present itself? You know, an example of what sort of issues she had.
She was it's extreme depression,
right?
Extreme lethargy,
right?
Constantly wanting to sleep. Very very low level of emotional triggers.
Yes.
So things that you could say to somebody else as a little bit of a joke would set my mum off into a downward spiral.
Yeah, and it didn't take much.
It didn't take much. And there were senses. There were some suicidal thoughts within there. You know, I can't honestly say I know that she ever pursued that, and if it ever was, it was kept from us.
Which is
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is good.
But she was in hospital with plenty of people who regularly did attempts.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that was there too. In fact, some of the people who would go home for weekends to visit their family wouldn't come back, and they hadn't come back for the very worst of reasons.
Yeah.
So-
You knew this.
Oh yeah, we realised, we quickly realised, you learn the signals and you realise what people are talking about, because they're trying to talk about it without talking about it, but kids are sharp.
Did you when you were saying before about when you were at school?
Yeah.
So came to, because obviously everything you relate everything, don't you? And
Yeah.
it sort of sparks everything in your mind. So for myself, there was something about my dad. He was in the newspaper and things, and he was a lot older than the average dad.
Yeah.
So that was something for kids to pick on.
Yeah.
So then, for me, I ended up as a teenager, going through a period of resenting my own dad. Right? So with yourself, do you remember going through a period of that where you, because of this negative that the kids were, did you sort of have a resentment almost about that side of it, about your mum at that point? Or?
I can't say I ever felt resentment.
Yeah.
And Junior knew my mum.
Yeah.
And she was always incredibly open and nice to any friend.
I could see your mum's face now. I can see the smile in your mum's face.
So there were swings and roundabouts with it. I can't say I ever thought I wish I had a different family.
Yeah.
You
You don't remember? That's amazing. That is fantastic.
I don't ever remember that.
Yeah.
I just remember not feeling comfortable about things.
Yeah.
That's the overriding stuff. But whenever any friends came round, and I think we as a family owe an awful lot to my mum, because she was incredibly open to people generally. So it gave us an aspect on life. So and I've got to say it's there within me.
Yeah.
It's come from somewhere. That.
And the strength she must have shown.
Right.
Because to live, especially how long you're talking, how long ago now with that? So what sort of a decade is this?
My mum really had bad mental health problems between the ages. Well, I'd been between 5. The worst of it was between 5 and 13.
So such formative years for you. And
Yeah.
obviously, then I'm thinking the state of the system at that point. So she must have been such a, as well as having that, that openness. She must have been such a strong person as well to go through everything and then.
Well, there was a warmth with it, but actually, it's interesting. The number of people that were in that hospital, I don't remember anyone being anything other than warm, open, generous,
Welcoming.
Yeah.
Welcoming.
And so it wasn't. It didn't strike me as an unusual trait at all. Yeah. But my mum was. She was open, and she would welcome anyone into the house.
Yeah.
She would welcome anyone who turned up. Perhaps that was the thing I found was, would you leave me friends alone? They're my friends, not yours. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think we've all like that.
Yeah.
That's
So-
nice. That. What would you say that is your main motivation now? Because you're retired, aren't you now? So
I have
what
been
gets you out of bed? What's your motivation in life now?
It's a funny thing. I think when I was working, and of course I was lecturing in higher education. I did that for 25 years.
That's a long time, isn't it?
And I must say, I spent the first probably 10, 12 years thinking, I can't do this, I've got to get out of it.
In what sense?
I found it incredibly hard. Trying to offer up something valuable with the amount of time that you've got, and feeling comfortable you're in your own skin doing it, standing up in front of people, talking as if you actually know something about it confidently, and being able to respond to the questions and everything that comes with it. I found that quite difficult. But then I did settle into so my motivations to start with were partly about keeping my head above water, and trying to find a purpose that I felt comfortable with within that. And so my motivations often were to do with developing learning, and that I felt was genuinely useful to the people that I was dealing with, and to the students that are around us. And not just that, but also to my colleagues, because I was also a union leader and a union rep. And I found an awful lot of my colleagues were struggling, and there's lots of colleagues who struggle in the work. I realised that it wasn't just me who finds the workplace difficult. But bit by bit, the last sort of 10 years, I would say, I kind of got to a point where that it was hard, but I was motivated by looking for things which could actively help improve matters for people, and some of those things were incredibly small. It was a little bit of a curriculum adjustments, a little bit how you think about teaching something, a little bit how you include people and open it up to a wider group of people. That allows some people to hang back a little bit, allows some people to come forward a little bit. Yeah, the whole range of things. This critical analysis stuff that I talked about before. It frustrates me when I hear people talking about that being, there's one of those namby-pamby things. You know, talking about why you learn, how you've learned, what you've learned, how you could improve that, how you felt about it. You've got to listen to yourself. Your emotions are there. That's how we make sense of the world. And learning how to do and connect that to something more. Connect that to things that other people have said, and some of it intellectual, some of it popular, some of it from lyrics from songs and things. But trying to tie this network of things together, trying to find ways to help students do that was important for me.
Did you know, sorry, that did you always? Obviously, it's quite to go into that. 25 years you were in higher education. So was it something that you? At what point did you think, right, I want to become a teacher to get back to this,
I didn't. I never did. I like many people in the 80s, I was in and out of jobs of various types. And I got to this point where I thought I was coming up to the 30s, and I'd noticed an access to higher education course. And I decided, I thought, I've got to try and draw the line under this. I'm just in and out of jobs and being made redundant. And I've got to try and do something about this. So I did access to higher education, which was interesting because the number of people arrive on things like that, of course, arrive with all this emotional baggage. Everyone's divorced, everyone's got all kinds of reasons that they didn't get education right the first time round. And you're dealing with all these people with all these kind of, all these issues, but who are actually positive and active in trying to do something about it. And it was such a thrill of a course to be on, but sort of being immersed in this quite passionate environment. People being passionate about their lives, but there was a lot of emotion lurking around out there, which emerged from people through their fears and doubts and the problems that the doing education was causing for them and their families. So that was great. Well, at the end, I went on and did my first degree, and at the end of that, as it happens, where I was studying, somebody went off maternity leave that summer, and I got, because I was the gobby one, I think, I was prepared to talk.
Well, it's good to talk.
Yeah, it is. And I got asked whether I'd cover a couple of classes, and I thought, you know what, I'll just do that. I never expected it to lead anywhere, and I did. And then next thing I know, 25 years has disappeared. And
it's funny how that worked out, right?
Yeah, that's it. So I didn't plan to get into it. But I did realise that some of those experiences as a child and some of this understanding increasingly came in useful, because I was never fazed by students who were having difficulties. I found that a number of staff, were quite frightened by having to deal with students who were homesick, who were dealing with various problems which they had, some who declared their problems, some who didn't want to declare their problems, some who had been on medication but they said, right, I'm at university, so I'm going to ditch my medication, I'm going to be a different person from this point on. Some people who were discovering things about their sexuality, some people, you know, there's this whole bundle of stuff going on, and it was a real febrile environment, and I quickly realised that I enjoyed that environment, and these students didn't seem like problems to me. They just seemed like people who were being people. Whereas, so I worked very hard in my time. This is part of what motivated us to try and find ways to support people in whatever way. And one of those key ways, and this fits very much with what you're talking about. I spent an awful lot of time walking around the university, into the coffee shops, into the bars. That makes me sound I was drinking, wasn't it? Into the bars that were there. I'd walk to where students were. I'd very deliberately bump into them. And I'd fit it in with my work pattern. So I might be sat marking or preparing a lecture, and then I'd suddenly realise I was getting bored. I think, what do I do now? I could sit and twiddle my thumbs for a little while. I know what I do. I'll go for a wander. So I used to go for a wander, and I used to bump into people, and in doing that, you would end up talking. And the things that used to spill out from those students at these moments was quite incredible. Yeah. And from that, you kind of, students quickly realise that there's someone that I can talk to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I used to find a steady stream of students finding me.
And but look at that. Just if we could just for a moment. So from you touched on it about when you were a child and you had so your mum was suffering in the way that she was suffering, but then she was showing this, you know, her despite all of this, she had all this, and then you then were gaining this insight into it. You were learning how to be with people at a time when, because really, I would imagine when you were talking about being in higher education, you're not talking about a time when it was really talked about as such as looking after your own mental aspect and the emotional well-being. So for you at that time, like do you ever sit down and think of what a difference you must have made? You know, that each of those students who needed someone, that you were there for them in some way. You know, their life changed at that moment.
I don't think I'd ever say that I was instrumental in changing somebody's life.
But you definitely were.
But I knew, I used to, one of the things that used to motivate me was knowing every now and again I'd get home and I'd say to my wife, or my wife works in higher education as well, and I used to say, do you know what, I did a good thing today. And I knew I'd done a good thing. I knew I'd done, I knew it. Every now and again, you got that feeling. Yeah. And I'll give you an example of that. There was one day that one of our students, I mentioned that people come to terms with their sexuality, and this one lad was gay. He knew he was gay. He knew he was gay when he arrived with us. Extremely camp, but that made him very visible. Well, he was getting a lot of stick from some of the students, male and female, about the way he presented. You know, okay, we don't mind you being gay, but you have to be that gay. Exactly. And
it's terrible.
Well, yeah, it's so. And I'll not mention his name, although he wouldn't mind. But I was actually still in contact occasionally with him. But on one occasion, I bumped into him, and he was sobbing in a quadrangle, and I spotted him, and I went over, and he was unable to talk. Anyway, I got him to sit down, and I sat with him and held his hand. I held his hand for 15, 20 minutes, and then I knew that was all that he needed at that point in time. Didn't really talk about very much, just and then eventually he was he was comfortable enough to walk, and he came with me to my office, which wasn't that far away, and he sat in my office with me, and I said to him, look, we don't have to talk about anything. I said, if you want to just sit here, and I'll just get on with something. And he said, yeah, I'll be okay. And he sat there, and he sat there for maybe an hour. I made a cup of tea for myself, and maybe one. He sat there, and from that point on, he knew that there was somebody who could come and just say, I'm having a bad day today.
That's priceless.
And I did, and as I said, I knew this was, I remember thinking, no, I did a good thing, really good thing. And to this day, I'm still in contact with him, only partially. And he's actually the only student who has my number. And because when I did retire, I was just a bit bothered that he might want a little bit of support occasionally. And he does occasionally ring me, and I occasionally just text him, and just to check things out. And he seems to be coping with his life. And although
those times, Phil, when you like you said, in those moments, you can feel it almost, can't you? When you've really affected that change. But also, what I really, for anybody watching now, that every single one of those people that you spoke to or you listened to, right? We touched on it last week. Tim, the guest last week, he was talking about they had a reunion from a school reunion, and he said somebody who becomes successful in their field. I think it was a BBC journalist. He came and he said to something along the lines of, this conversation, when we had this conversation, you said this to me. Now, to Tim, he said he couldn't remember really that, that time, but to that other person, and that's the thing. You see, for yourself, it's your nature. You don't look at it as being, you were doing what you know is needed. You were doing what comes naturally to be in that place, to go to where the students might need you and to be listening. But the impact on their lives, and then it's not just their lives, is it? It's everyone around them, their children. Every single person is affected by something that you do. Take your time to do.
Well, it also benefited me. This is a two-way street. Making me feel good about me.
Excuse me, sir. Is that my phone?
There's something happening.
Yeah, that's someone who, on a live calling. Fantastic. Sorry, Phil.
But it's a two-way street. This. It helps you.
Yes.
And it's no bad thing to think. I felt good about that, and I know I feel good about that. But on top of that, because if it becomes part of your habit of mind, how to deal with other people, or try to. I'm not trying to get it perfect because we all get it wrong at times.
Of course.
But actually, dealing with that many students in that kind of environment, it gave me a wealth of material that I could then use, not by name, because these were private discussions. But it allowed me to actively pursue our student support systems, our senior management, about how they were supporting students. What are your policies here? How do we go about this? How can we make this something more tailored to student needs? How can we make our colleagues? How can we help our colleagues become more reactive or proactive? How can we figure out how? And it doesn't need to be one size fits all, but how can we try and get departments to think about how they structure themselves to encourage the support of these students? In our department, it became quite the thing. I was deputy head. That when students were having difficulties, and the colleagues who didn't feel comfortable with it, you have to say, well, I can't change that. It's difficult to change that. You can talk a little bit about what you can do and how you can approach it, and the questions you could ask, and how you do those little bits of training, and I call it training, but it's largely just a discussion over a cup of coffee, because it's better that way. But you realise quickly that some people just struggle with it. So one of the mantras in our department was, if I feel that I'm not liking dealing with this, get them to fill. And that's what used to steadily happen. I used to get staff. Oh, I've got I'll make a name up, Megan with me. She wouldn't mind a little chat, and I'd know straight away what that was. So there'd be a little hand. But what we used to say was, do not let them walk out of your office. Do not leave them alone. Get them. Hand over. Make sure you can say, honestly, I did my bit, I got them to somebody who's slightly better able to deal with it.
You have to turn that thing off.
I've turned this one off.
Right.
Yeah, so sorry.
And then from my point of view, I had to recognise my limitations.
Yes.
Because I'm not a counsellor.
No,
I'm not those things.
Yeah.
So at some point I'd go, right, okay, we've got to a point, you know where I am, but I think we need to get you to somebody who can, and I would not let go of them until I'd handed them over to somebody who was far better able at dealing with those things. So looking at those structures, but it was also about trying to encourage the kind of processes and using this backdrop of information that you actually end up pulling together, encouraging across the university approaches to policy about how you think about things like how you structure curriculum, to encourage students to think about themselves and their well-being. Now, that doesn't mean that you study in English, or engineering, and that now I'm suddenly just going to write all this stuff about how I feel. That'll help me build a bridge. But it means that I think you can structure it around how you learn something, how you went about it, what you could have improved upon, how you could make your learning better, what were the things that were my obstacles, and that's different person by person. So a very wide range of things that you could do, even down to things like academic malpractice cheating, if you want to call it that. But people who are struggling will often find, oh God, I can't do this. And they make daft decisions about how to proceed, or how do we handle this, how do we approach it. And that was actually something that I did lead on across the university. We rewrote that policy entirely. I'm not boring you with the detail, but that actually has been picked up nationally as a novel way to capture some of the issues that students, not only are they having problems, but the traps that they then fall into. But going back to what motivates me now, because I left that, and you have to kind of put some of that behind you, because I'm not in that one. I talked about doing Spanish before. I throw myself into things like that. I enjoy those challenges.
Challenges and experience.
Yes, I joined. I do not know what that was.
Sorry, carry on, Phil. Sorry.
Sound like a woodpecker
Because,
on your phone.
I'll tell you what, do you want to just carry on a second?
So I throw myself into it, and I've joined the University of the Third Age.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that,
But I think it's part of what motivates me is about widening my community. And doing things which invigorate my thinking. Why I try and learn the guitar.
Exactly.
I enjoy the different thinking that gives me. And I do feel motivated by those challenges.
Well, I wrote down here, Phil, the stuff you talk about, while you was at university, while you were teaching, relatability. As you've come across as a person. Obviously, I know you personally, but for those who don't, it's relatability that really counts when you're in a situation like that, where you're in a university and you're teaching you're mixing with a broad range of people. You've got to be relatable, as you've said, being able to deal with different problems, because people present with different situations that, although, as you say, you're not a counsellor, and that kind of stuff, but you're still going to be able to relate. I know that relatability, definitely, well, in just my humble opinion, coming from your experiences growing up and being in different situations, and then, like I said, different jobs. You're born with a silver spoon. you know, in your math or something like that, you've had to work your way to get to where you want to be. It didn't come easy. I'm sure it didn't.
No, but it does also depend on other people. You know, other people have given me a chance. As well. So, you know, I never look at I've done. I never look at it as I've done it for myself.
No.
I can't say I wasn't involved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you know what? There's a lot of people on that journey. And I think some of us have been prepared to enjoy the opportunities that other people are offering you. So I mentioned, you know, doing my Spanish and what have you, but I think that it's one of the things that's always amused me. George Bush got laughed at when he said there's what you know, what you know you don't know, and what you don't know you don't know.
Exactly.
And people laughed at him, and the old craziness is that was one of the most accurate things ever. You can remain in a world where all you engage with is what you already know you know, and the only things you open up to are the things that you already have engaged with, the things that you already. So all you're doing is constantly reinforcing what you know. And there's a sense that lots of people many people get trapped in this echo chamber, and as they become increasingly detached from the world that they're in, because whilst they remain within what they know, the world moves on, their families move on. People die. Your your group gets smaller. And you. Yeah, please, that'd be lovely. So, and I think this fits in with all kinds of learning, whether that be in standard education, and university education, or in your self-learning or autodidactism. In that.
Before you move on, just explain to people out there who might know what autodidactism is.
Self-learning.
Right, there you go.
Learning for yourself. Finding. I'm a great. I really believe a lot in the value of autodidactism, self-learning. There is. There's a place for courses and structures within those courses. But much learning is actually best achieved by those things that really actually motivate yourself. But there's a danger that you actually just stay with it. Actually, you just end up studying what you already know. So you're staying in a fairly closed, sealed world. And I think this is what happens to some people who spend a lot of time online. You know, some of the people who consider themselves, who we now call radicalised, from whichever perspective that is, they've become cocooned in a particular world with the same messages circulating round and round. Okay, with slightly different examples, but you end up trapped within a particular world. I think that can happen to people in lots of ways. Let's move on from the radicalisation. But people who are feeling emotionally weak, people who are emotionally frail, I should say, they can spend time just looking at things that reinforce the world that they exist in. But trying to push out into those things and go, okay, I don't know about this. Here's a different perspective. Trying to push out into these different worlds, and then occasionally bump into things that really just shake your understanding up.
Challenging yourself.
Challenging yourself with things that you didn't even know that you could be challenged with, that you didn't even know existed. So, and that's not just that might sound a little bit pompous at times, but everybody has, right through their life, has some need to challenge themselves.
Without a doubt.
And some people, it's easy to fall into a trap of, and we all do it, I say some people, myself included, we fall into a trap of just relearning the stuff you already know, but from a slightly different perspective. Well, we need to push into new areas sometimes.
So, well, I think you've answered the question too already, which was what do you do in your work, and is that what you always want to do? So you've covered that. So if we move on to in your work life, what is success to you? What do you get more satisfaction from? Although I know you've said you've retired, but if you wanted to move on from retirement, what is success to you? You know, and what you get more satisfaction from?
I think that I think there's a real important thing to do with the transition from working to being retired.
Yeah.
Or not working, or certainly not being paid to work anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's something to capture here, because in the workplace, every now and again I say every now and again, and it's true this. Every now and again you do a good lecture, I mean a really good one, and you think, that was good, but not as often as you would like. And every now and again you think, I did a good thing today. And these things were the things that motivated me in the work. But as part of my union work, I at one stage was the pensions officer for our branch, and helping people understand the pension, the teacher pension scheme, how they could. There's stuff to do with pension, but I went on various union courses to do with pensions. One of them was startling, and it was to do, or one part of one of them was startling, and they brought in some stats, and these stats were to do with people in teacher pension scheme and retiring. So they hit, say, 60, I'll just use 60 as a number. So they hit the age of 60, that was the age I was able to take my pension at. So you hit the age of 60, and you take your pension. Now look at the stats. The number of people who die within the first 2 years of taking their pension is remarkable.
Wow.
It's statistically anomalous. If you get through the first 2 years, you typically, as a teacher, so this is to do with people who worked in the teaching profession. You get through the first 2 years, you typically go on to exceed the national average living age. You know? So those 2 years are critical. What goes on? Well, they did not have a definitive answer, but they had some speculation, which is based on the evidence they had, but they knew they needed better studies to be absolutely certain. Some of it's to do with de-stressing. So you spend a lot of time in the profession, and actually you relax and you don't properly de-stress. You adopt poor lifestyles. In fact, a friend of mine, I was telling you about Friday night, the club we were in was where an ex-colleague used to go, and he died very shortly after retiring at 60. He adopted, they adopt poor lifestyles, so what do you do to fill your time now? You're not constantly in the workplace. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll smoke more, I'll drink more. And
the easy traps to go into.
And it's an easy trap to go in, so there's traps to fall into. And then it's moving on. So do you become a person who just talks about what you used to do all the time, and so every story you have is about what you used to do, and you create a kind of this vision, this picture of yourself, which you to a level buy into yourself. You're suddenly going from being a kind of all right lecturer to being in your head the greatest lecturer that ever existed, and this is a story I'm going to tell everybody. Well, that lie will haunt you. And you'll know plenty of people who no longer work or no longer do so, but all they do is talk about what they used to do, and it's like they can't move on. And bit by bit you're closing your world off. But if you can find a way to transition those couple of years, and this is where retirement planning really is important. Although if you haven't done retirement planning and you are retired, it's not too late to go, I need a plan.
Yeah, of course.
It's good to find a way to how are you going to conduct your life? What are you going to do with your time? And I don't just mean having something to do all the time, but what's going to occupy your mind? You can talk about what motivates you. Well, I do COVID was kind of surprisingly useful to me, because it meant suddenly I had to adapt. Everyone had to adapt to their life.
Without a doubt.
So it was like a boot camp for retirees for me, and so it peculiarly was useful. So what do? What motivates me? Well, I definitely concentrate more on making sure I eat healthfully. I do exercise. I've always been an exerciser anyway, although I'm more of a back garden exerciser now. You know, it allows me just to structure as and when. I've started doing Tai Chi. I did and taught karate for years, but I've started doing Tai Chi because I just don't feel like kicking and screaming anymore. It doesn't seem to be me anymore for some reason. And I do my Spanish. I read, and I do the stuff that involves my family, my friends, and I find that this my own personal structure might not sound like very much to some, but I say within my mind I have a structure. So even when I'm not doing Spanish, I walk around. So I'm not doing the actual lessons. I'll spot things and I'll go, how do you say that in Spanish?
Constantly.
And I find myself constantly putting myself through these little mental exercises, these mental hoops to jump through.
So you would say then, in summing up that question, you'd say that so your transition from lecturer to retiring, that's been successful in the here and now.
Well, I've got through the first 2 years.
So
That's promising.
So I went on to that because I think we covered that and all that kind of stuff. So
I think the eating healthfully is an important thing.
Yeah,
where you can.
Yes.
Because there's an awful lot of evidence that shows that your brain is very well connected to your stomach.
We're all one system, aren't we?
Yeah,
So it's something that we talk about a lot, and it's good to talk. And I'd like to, I think after we've done this, after we've done this, I think I'd like to, because it's part of the disappointment side of it that I was touching on today, about creating and changing habits. So you touched on that, and I've written a few down. So I want to come back to that after, if we can. With that side of it, especially with the retirement part of it in mind, that how many people, not just in retirement, but how many people it's an accident, it's going through life accidentally, and when you start to put things into place, then you start to realise that you could take control more of how you feel and how but I'd like to talk about that a little bit more after. So how do you think that, it's quite a broad question I suppose really, but how did work in the main affect your well-being positively and negatively?
I said already that I spent the first 15 years really spending a lot of time thinking, I've got to get out of this. But the carrot is that, okay, I'm earning reasonably well. I've got a decent pension. What would I do? And it was on my doorstep as well. I could walk to work. That helps. That saves a good couple of hours every day. That's a good thing. And it honestly made me feel quite uncomfortable for a long period of time. And that's not to say there weren't good moments within that. But there were very few Sundays in that first 13, 15 years where I thought, tomorrow's Monday, here we go again. It was largely never as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it did play in my mind, and so it clearly got to me. And I really don't think that these structures to support teachers, new teachers, are particularly strong in there at all. If you go to any university, they'll talk about what they do to support, but it's lip service, and I've never seen anything that is much beyond lip service. And I've been in many universities, and I heard many teachers talk, and I think many teachers find it a similar situation. I think that the management structures are such that managers are not managing departments. They'd actually turn away from the people they're supposed to be managing to feed a sort of policy machine that exists outside the department. And that's always bugged me, is that you want a good manager to spend their time looking at their department, looking at their staff, thinking, how can we work here? How can we improve things? How can I help you? How can we help each other? How can we become a better department? Whereas what actually often happens is they face the other way, and they are almost buried in paperwork that needs to feed the machine. So I have some sympathy with it.
Jesus.
But it causes a problem where colleagues just aren't supported enough in various ways. And I think a lot of staff experience that it can be pretty tough. But eventually I found a kind of status quo in my mind. And whilst I started to learn how to feed the system, stuff that left it thinking it's got what it wants, but left me relatively untouched. I got better at spotting things on the horizon and being proactive about it and helping other colleagues. This was because I was a deputy head, so my business was dealing with the day-to-day stuff. I got better at spotting the stuff that was on the horizon. Right, okay. And I think that's and then helping colleagues to deal with what's on the horizon. How can we strategise this? So when the things that come along, we are already in the game. We had skin in the game already. And then we'd become somebody that other departments would look at and go, oh, this is what they do, how do they do this? And we got better, and I noticed that our department became smoother because of that. And that's how I got to be comfortable.
So when you say comfortable, you just weren't there to. You weren't one of the people that was just there to tick boxes. You wanted to actually make a difference and be effective.
Yeah.
When you say comfortable, explain when you say comfortable.
I think I learned how to tick the boxes. I learned which boxes to tick. Yeah. Which would maximise our ability to stay below the radar. Yeah. And get on with what we wanted to get on with. Right. Which was teaching. Yeah. Right. And making it. Helping make it a better, friendlier, healthier environment for learning to take place in. Yeah. The learning being a thing which is, proper learning. I'm not training. Yeah. Too much education has turned into a training exercise. Yeah. You have to learn this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill to level what this A, B, C, D, or. But no, learning, education, and learning how to learn, learning how you learn, learning what influences your learning, and that's not just as a student, but as a member of staff. We're not the finished products. No, of course. I did inductions and talked to very many students, and I always used to say the thread that joins us together is that we're all learners. Yeah. We're all just in different places, and what we could, whilst we might seem that I'm at the front of the room and you're stood here talking about whatever I'm talking about, and you're down there listening to whatever I'm talking about, there is a single thread that connects us. Yeah. We are all learners. That's even a quote. That's a good quote, and that goes out to everyone out there as well.
It's a section of life. You have a choice, and this is the thing.
That's why we're here.
So many people don't. So many people do, unfortunately, go through life with all the struggles and all the different things that they're not learning, that they're not, wanting to expand their horizons, what have you. So
trying to encourage staff to think about learning and teaching from a growth mindset perspective. That's what I spent a lot of time doing, and I think that's the thing, is learning how to develop those independent learning attitudes, not just to do with the subject you're actually studying. Yeah, of course, yeah. In many respects, doesn't matter what it is. It's how you learn about learning, and how you challenge yourself, which is important, because that's the thing you can take into every aspect of your life. and I think that's the thing which I started to learn and understand more as I got towards the back end of my career. And that's the thing which I then take into my retirement. So I still approach things from a kind of growth mindset perspective. And there's this constant little bit of analysis going. I notice myself doing it all the time. And weighing up where things are going. How is my world becoming a bit too small? What could I do here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm training in my backyard, and that's very good, but should I join a gym? Because I actually get to meet other people, and not just people my own age, people of another age. You know, there's all kinds of things, benefits that can come from it. This may sound peculiar, but the growth mindset that pops into my mindset, into my mind, actually goes back. I was really looking at this. They buried my heart at Wounded Knee, a story which was about the United States and the Native Americans. I was looking at this book on my bookshelf yesterday. I must read that again. But one of the really interesting things to do with the West's conquering of the Americas, destruction of the Americas in many respects. They originally intended to arrive there and enslave the Native Americans. And what they discovered was they could not do it because the Native American approach is they didn't have leaders in the sense, they didn't have hereditary leaders, they didn't have anything like that. They just had people who were good thinkers. And those people that more people listened to became the leader. But every single person has a kind of independent thinker. So when they enslaved them, they kind of go, they trapped them and said, right, you're now doing, they'd kind of go, no, I get being captured, I understand being captured, but I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And they could never properly enslave. So all they could do was destroy them.
Yeah.
This is where they learn a lesson. This how well we still need people to do these things, and so they did a number of things. And one of the things they did was they realised, okay, we go to Africa, get all these people, and we shove them in boats. So we capture them, degrade them, shove them in boats, all from different parts of Africa, who don't even talk each other's languages, so they can't even communicate to each other. You shove them in a boat, which takes God knows how many months to get to wherever they're going. You enslave them wherever they go. You've degraded them. And you actually you actually destroy those people mentally. And they are also now in an environment which they don't understand, because the Native Americans could even exist on the land. Because they knew what to grow, where to grow it, where they could find what they knew how to go. They had the skills, and they had an independent mindset, which those people that were enslaved in their own environment would have had. But once separated from it, destroyed mentally, and that continual process of destroying somebody led to the horrific enslavement. And I often look back at that and think it's quite remarkable that how the system worked. So intend to enslave, but find that they can't do it. But then, how do we go about it? And you create a horrific system, which is all based around breaking the independence and independent thinking of the people that you then go on to enslave.
Without going off onto that too much, but what it does also bring to mind is what should make people realise who are listening to that is when people doubt that there are others who look at things in a long-term sense as opposed to the average Joe in life. You know, people think of things on a daily basis, a weekly basis, maybe a yearly basis. You know, you're looking forward to the holiday. But there are people who are in different positions, as you were just saying about them, saying that, who look at things over a 10-year, or a 20-year, 50-year, because it's keeping the status quo that they want to keep.
Yeah.
So with waiting for. It's quite
Yeah.
going on a lot today.
Yeah,
Good information. I hope you're listening out there. If you get a train to catch.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely very useful. So I think you've really covered a lot of the well-being side of it, you know, and how and yourself and how it affected you, not just in work, but what you got, I think, from before work, before you started working, and that's then helped you through your life and your career, hasn't it? But then also to pass on to other people. What if I was to ask you to sum up mental health and well-being to you? What does it mean to you? How would you how would you sum it up to you? Not necessarily just in your life, but I mean as a thing. What does it say to you?
I think that the question is always down to it's going to be very individual.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's the question. What makes you, and I've used this word comfortable a good number of times this morning, is what personally leaves you feeling comfortable in the world that you're in.
Yeah.
So, but that goes to come down to this, ask yourself some questions. So you have to learn to ask a question of yourself. Oh, why do I feel like this? What?
Yeah, I agree totally.
And it is a basic question, which is it's a simple thought process. So why have I suddenly got angry? Why do I feel frustrated? Why do I feel warm and fuzzy?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Okay, if I'm feeling warm and fuzzy and comfortable and think this is nice, how did that happen and how could I achieve that again?
Yes,
Why, if I'm feeling slightly angry, and everyone's going to feel angry, if I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling slightly anxious, and you've not just got a hangover, by the way, because I feel a bit anxious today. Oh, I know what it was. Yes, I remember now. There's a reason behind that. The chemicals have got to you, and perhaps you should drink a bit less the next time. But learn to listen a bit to what's going on in you.
Yeah.
And then think, okay, how can I either stop that happening or reduce the number of times that happening, or develop a strategy which perhaps helps me through that. For me, that's what. And it's going to
for
be
you. That's how you. And do you remember? Is that sort of what you remember doing for as long as you can remember, or was there a point that you started doing this?
I think it started. I would say it started about 15 years ago. I think it's when I really started realising, knowing a little bit more about growth mindset, and thinking about that from that perspective. I started off thinking about it from a learning perspective, but I rapidly realised it was something that spins out everywhere. I've read a lot of books to do with psychology and various things, and I kept picking up this message from within them. It's actually about paying attention to yourself. We're a feelings machine. That's how our brain communicates with you. It doesn't actually say, oh, you better pick that up, or you better stop doing that. You feel emotions, and that's what's going on. That's how your brain communicates with you. So it's how do I then engage with that?
Yeah.
So listening to it,
yes,
and then trying to act. And of course, I mentioned diet. Diet's a massively important thing where you can. Don't get me wrong. I know some people have struggled to. Lots of people are struggling at the moment, but lots of people have always struggled, and it's not easy.
Well, it's a whole. We'll probably do a show at least and talk about the whole aspect. There's so much to it, isn't there? The whole addictiveness of the processed food industry and everything else. Something that you touched on before when you were talking about reflection and self-reflection. Mm-hmm. I look at that as learning yourself. So learning who you are, learning how, and that way you can make the changes, because that are needed to make, because most of us, we are born into what we're born into, and the school system does, in this country at least, from my experience, it's not about helping you to learn who you are. It's not about helping you to learn how to be a human being, you know, and with good mindset and good mental well-being practices and what have you. It's about the school system. So I think adults in general, these are all things, what you're talking about, these are things that are very, very prevalent in what we do. Even the caveat to when you were saying about listen to yourself, people, the problem I find is that unfortunately so many are so used to listening to, I'll bring up the Native American thing again, as soon as you touched on it.
Yeah.
So one of the Native American proverbs or way of looking at ourselves is that they look at two wolves inside us. So you've got a wolf inside you that is all about the anger and the hate and the guilt, all those negative emotions. And then you've got the other wolf inside you that's all for the goodness side of you, you know, that wants the best for you. And then it's whichever one you feed, that's the one that is the most in your life, you know. So I think that, in my experience, I think that a lot of people in general walk around, and what they've got is the other wolf that's louder in their ear, you know. So and the problem with sometimes is that if I say to a person A, listen to what's going on inside, now to them listening to what's going on inside is that self-hateful, you know, constantly doubting what they're doing. So then to that person, it's almost, look, you can change the narrative, you know. Whereas to somebody else, it's that their good wolf, so to speak, is the one that's louder. So which then brings it back to all the habits, right? And that's what I wanted to touch on when we're done, about the different habits that you're doing to create this better feeling.
Your brain, in many respects, is kind of neutral. And the things that you do can be reinforced. If you train your brain to be negative, the substance which coats the various neurons and synapses and what have you, it's called this stuff called myelin, which makes those connections stronger and more reactive and speedier. They're the things that will come to mind more quickly. But your brain is kind of neutral. If you teach it bad things, if you teach yourself to be negative, if you teach yourself to be defeatist, your brain can go, oh right, this is what they want to do. I best structure my brain to react to those things best. And I mean, this makes it sound far too simple. But you can.
The system is quite simple.
The system, but enacting it's different. And you can actually promote those other things. So if you learn to play guitar, as I said before, I practice doing the guitar. I'm nowhere near as good as Junior at anything. But I do know I get better. And I do know I can do things and make it sound better than I used to be able to make it sound. And sometimes I even think the cats aren't too scared in the local neighbourhood. And likewise with Spanish, every now and again I go, that's amazing. How I knew that. And I don't know where it's almost like you think, how did that happen? It's descended from nowhere. No, it hasn't descended from nowhere. It's me being constant and constantly reinforcing those patterns. Well, that is something that you can do. You also have to accept that your brain is actually pretty lazy. If you could, it'll go. This is what people refer to as type 1 and type 2 thinking. And I always forget which is which, by the way, so I always have to look that up. But forget which is which. One is you've got the bit where your brain kind of goes, just leave me alone. You pick up a book and you read the first, oh God, that's complicated. And they go, you don't need to know that. Put it down and do something else. And you're right, that is boring. I'm putting it down. And many people experience that in the first chapter of a book. You're thinking, what is this about? And you have to sort of force yourself through and right, down there. But that is pretty much the same with everything. If you can force yourself through that first bit, you can actually get into this active learning phase. but which is what helps develop the structures to support the thing that you're trying to do.
Yes. Yeah.
So being active in trying to develop those things which you think could be beneficial to you, and being determined to be consistent with it is important.
Yes. Yeah. Love that.
And there's a trick that very many people use. The kind of, you know, I exercise, and some mornings I'll go out there in the back garden, particularly when it's cold like this, and you go out in the back garden, don't fancy this. But the thing is, there's two little things I say. One is, I'll just start, and if I feel like packing in, I'll just pack it in.
Yeah.
But actually, starting
Yeah.
and doing sort of a minute or so, you think, oh, just keep going, you start feeling a bit. And the second thing is, the little mantra I always use, it always sounds rubbish now, but when I've done it, I always feel good about it.
Yes, definitely.
It sounds like the most rubbish thing in the world now.
Yeah.
I finish though, and I always think, that's great, I'm glad I did that.
I love that, Phil. And do you know what? That's the perfect. Thank you very much. Like, obviously, you're going to stay here. Thank you very much. Really, really enjoyed it. And you definitely insights into. I think they're really, really valuable. Going on from what you were just saying about the habits and the learning, I think that it's too easy for people to think that they can't change. Isn't it? It's too easy for people to think. There's a lot of people right now who are struggling with everyday life, struggling with the different aspects of it. And sometimes it's very easy to feel like you can't get out of the rut you're in, you can't get out of the moment. Maybe you feel you keep going back to the point of thinking that this keeps coming around, you know, oh, I'm stuck in this place and I pick myself up and then it goes back to reality. And the thing is that, as Phil was just saying, it's getting into your head, getting into the mindset that you can change things. And I look at it as little steps, and it can start with tiny little habits. And by you, as you were talking about the active learning part of it, is that we talk sometimes about a positive list. So if you're feeling a bit of a struggle, in a struggling place right now, and you feel like you're not motivated enough, you know, you're worrying about things, and changing little things, putting little things into place can make a big difference to your life. So Phil was talking about some of the things that you do, that you look at are important, very important, healthy eating. And you can't, if you eat an unhealthy diet, it's very hard to go from eating a very unhealthy diet to eating a very healthy diet, for many reasons, right? Just like this. But you can start off a bit at a time. Same with exercise. If you don't do any kinds of exercise, you can start off just a bit at a time. You don't have to go and do a Tai Chi class, but that is amazing. You don't have to do any class, you don't have to go to a gym. If you don't do any regular exercise, you can start with climbing your stairs a couple of extra times, or if you watch TV a lot, you know, sitting down and moving your arms around and setting your mind to it.
Kind of bean curls.
Yes, yeah. But you see, the thing is what Phil was touching on was the learning part of it, is that, and starting. If you set your mind to something and you say, right, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try and do a little bit. You can't judge yourself on, oh, I tried that and it didn't work. You know, you tried it 3 times and it didn't work. It's almost like cables in your brain, and you've got to persist. You've got to push yourself.
Got to persist.
Whatever way it is to start creating those habits. Because, as you said, when you start something, it doesn't take long for you to get the happy hormonal boosts that we get. You know, it's a free high, guys. People go out all the time, don't they, trying to search for the high, the fulfillment. The reality is that the way that our body is, and our brain is that you do things and then you get these free highs, which
go back to my Leicester quote.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Good, do you want to read that one?
I will.
I don't want to get it
without the swear word.
So this was the quote of the day. This is
the quote of the day. Yeah.
Speaking to Jimmy McNulty in The Wire. Life, you know what that is? It's that happens when you're waiting for the things that never come.
Yes, very true. In fact, next time we'll read that again before the end, and I will slot in a beep just to
You could say this stuff.
Yeah, the
if
stuff.
You want, you know.
So I wanted to. Now, Junior's got some community stuff, haven't you, Junior?
Yeah.
Now, I'll just say quickly, welcome to, if you just joined us, welcome to Getting on Track Together. This lady in the background here, this is the automated announcement system, because we are in the community lounge at Runcorn Station. Whether you're watching this live or you're watching it later on, this is Monday morning, the time is 11:15. Well, time's flown.
Yeah.
So Junior, yes, you've got some community announcements.
Yeah.
If you have, sorry Junior, if you have got anything, it was a lot easier when they stopped the announcement. wasn't
It was.
We do like it, but
Yeah.
it's a bit going on a lot today.
Yeah.
Isn't it? If you do have anything that you want to tell us about, you want us to let people know about, something in your community, doesn't have to be local to here. Anything that you want us to know about, please let us know, either in the comments or inbox us, or you can email us at itsgoodtotalk. That's itsgd2tk@gmail.com. Okay, Junior.
Yeah. If you live in Halton, and you get one of these inside Halton, in the winter 2022, on page 10, and page 10 11, I was looking through it, and there's some useful information in there about free school meals. And if you want to find out more information about free school meals, you can go to www.halton.gov.uk.
So is this about in school, or is this in the school holidays? Is this? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the free school meals. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's also for local food banks, emergency food support, local food banks. If you're struggling, it says here, to get enough food due to hardship, you can be issued with a voucher for use at a local food bank. Vouchers can be issued for 3 days worth of food. Now in Widnes, it's www.witnessfoodbank.org.uk, or call, if you've got a pen handy, or call 0151 422 0031. That's an office. That's in Widnes. Call 0151 422 0031. In Runcorn, it's 0151 257 2443 to speak to Halton Citizens Advice Bureau, a referral partner, or Runcorn District Food Bank. So if you're struggling with food, if you're struggling with food, then you can check out these local food banks. I'll give you those numbers again for Widnes. That's 0151 422 0031, and for Runcorn it's 0151 257 2443. This is all in the Inside Halton magazine, if you get one through your door. Now, where we are, yeah, so Citizens Advice Bureau in Halton, that's a different number. If you want to speak to the Citizens Advice Bureau on any issues that you might have, they're really good. I've used them before back in the day. You call 0151 257 2449 for money advice, or 08082 787 956. That's the general office. Or there's advice. There's an email address here. Advice at what does that say?
Halton CAB.
Yeah.
Oh, the email. So the advice at cahalton.org.uk.
Or visit www.haltononcab.org.uk.
Yeah.
Or visit the walk-in receptions from 10 to 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. The Runcorn units at 1 to 2 Orchard Walk in Runcorn Shopping City. On the Widnes Unit 3 Victoria Building, Logsdale Road, W886DJ. So if you've got this Inside Halton magazine, all the information is in there on page 10 and 11, what we discussed before.
That's brilliant.
Yeah?
That's brilliant. Cheers, Junior. Also community-wise, so like I said before, if you've got anything that you want us to shout about, you want us to know about, please let us know. Couple of things. One is just outside Runcorn area, so I know that go a couple of miles towards Frodsham. There are seven pubs and quite a large area that are all doing taking part in a warm space thing, really. And the 7 pubs, they've each got one morning of the week. And I have shared the details on our page, but then I'll do it again. And if you're interested, just ask. And each pub is between the 9 and 12 on their day. So, for example, it might be the Tigers Head in Norley or the Bears Paw in Frodsham, and each pub between 9 and 12, you can go in and have a free brew and have a chat, have a bit of conversation, which I thought was great.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, I saw the post was shared. So somebody's gone out of their way, somebody's put this together and thought, this could be a good thing. And then, unfortunately, you get somebody who looks at this thing, because sometimes people look at it just for themselves, and they go, oh, well, that's useless because it's not for me. So somebody, comments, this is social media, somebody comments and says, oh, this is, by the time I've driven round to all these places, I may as well have stayed in my house, and it just puts a negative.
Yeah.
We don't need. If you don't need, sometimes I think it's better if you look at something that's proposed for free for people's use, then and you don't feel it's useful for you, maybe you could just either leave it or commend somebody on doing a good job. I think that all these pubs that are taking part in it, people live close by to those pubs. So I don't think, obviously they're going to welcome anybody. If you want to drive there, brilliant. But I think it's aimed at people who need that space, who might be lonely, who might have, they don't have to put the heating on for a bit in the morning, especially when it's cold at the moment. So I think applause all round for doing something like that. Really.
Yeah, definitely. I forgot to mention as well in this Inside Hot magazine, especially in this winter where people can't afford heating, it also got places to stay warm, affordable warmth, and places to stay warm. If you check it out, it says here, over the winter, places like community centres, children's centres, libraries and local churches, amongst those providing events, activities and places to stay warm. The council website.
I'll put, after, I'll take a photo of that, the places, and then we can put them in the comments.
Just the one.
The other thing that I wanted to share about community-wise was, thank you so much, because I don't know how much of this can hear with it, but thank you so much for welcoming us, especially myself. Junior's Runcorn, aren't you? Everyone knows Junior. But myself, people don't know me as much, but thank you for the welcome and being here.
You're well known, Nathan. You're well known. You're well known.
Especially on Friday. So on Friday we do the drop-in space here.
Yeah.
You're welcome anytime you're free, Phil. Just drop on it. It's from 12 till 6 on a Friday afternoon, except for the 16th. So we're not doing one there. But yeah, so we've been meeting some really great people. And on Friday, I spoke to a lady called Claire from somewhere, Hazelhurst Art Studios in Runcorn, lovely lady, and they do lots of good there. And we are having a collaboration. I was mentioning to this.
You mentioned that.
So this is on something called Blue Monday, which is on the 16th of January. And we're going to have a collaboration here of ourselves. We're going to do the show, and we're going to have some special guests on that day from Train of Thought art project, which is, I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's very, very exciting actually. It's very good, and we're going to make a day of it as well. So we're going to, on the show, we're going to have some ukulele as well, ukulele players. And I thought maybe if we can come up with something with them maybe. Yeah,
there's some ukuleles, you're going to love this name. There's some ukulele players, I'm sure they're from, it's called I think they're called the Ukes of Hazard.
Oh,
I love it.
Whoever plays ukulele and hasn't got that, you've missed out.
I love Ukes of Hazard.
Great,
brilliant.
And it's going to be a day as well till 4. So after we've done the show in the morning, which will be in collaboration with Train of Thought, then through the day as well there'll be musicians on and cakes and things like that. So, but you can come down on the 16th of January. So we're at that point now, aren't we? Where we're getting towards the
part of the show where we do this is the music bit.
Yeah, this is our live music bit now.
Yeah.
So Junior's got the song that is now.
We're going to be disturbed by this, aren't we?
Yeah,
we've got some soundscape.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because she wants to join in.
That's
that's
it.
Our backing singer.
Yeah.
She's just doing it.
I wonder what key that's in. It's either in Yale.
You must have done a gig before where when you've got people joining in.
Many.
And then it probably sounds.
Many.
That sounds really good.
Most is get off your rubbish.
So I think we'll be alright.
Yeah.
But we're definitely going to do. You're definitely going to do your song. Yeah.
So are we going to do Let's Stay Together first?
Do you want to have a go at it?
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay.
It's
we
live, people. It's live.
Yeah, we haven't practiced this.
No, just so handy. This is one I made earlier. So yeah, this is unrehearsed completely. So I'll give you an intro.
Yeah, okay. Let me just. I think I remember all the lyrics.
Yeah.
I haven't sang this one for years. So,
Yeah, I sang it last night for you.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally unrehearsed, people.
Okay, so we don't own this song.
No, we
This
don't own the
music.
rights.
No,
We don't even know if Al Green owned the rights, but he sang it.
he did. So apparently he
Yeah.
did write it.
Yeah.
With Al Jackson Jr. and
Al Jackson
Lily
Jr.
Mitchell.
Oh, right.
It's quite a bit of a classic song.
Yeah.
It's still morning really for me.
Yeah.
You know, we've just been here since
Well,
8 o'clock,
I've
haven't we?
tuned down half a step, so let's
Yeah,
you know,
oh
so
yeah, fantastic.
That's
That's
the
the
same. So
Monday morning.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the Monday morning.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Monday morning key.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give you an intro and then we can start, right?
Okay, mate. Fantastic.
Here we go. This is Let's Stay Together.
Yeah.
On-
Grab a bit of water.
Let's Stay Together on Getting on Track Together.
Yes.
How good's that?
You're a pro. Man.
Yeah, oh, bro. Yeah, so here we go. While Nathan gets the liquid going, so yeah. Here we go.
I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do, baby, is alright with me. You
I tried.
You tried. That was awesome. And
I
thanks
tried.
for the backing as well.
Superb.
Well, you got to a point where I couldn't help but join it.
Yeah,
I didn't
I love
quite know
that.
the words. Remembered it in certain places.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I love that. Because we said one of the things was that we talked about was that we want music to be a part of it, so that when guests join in whatever way that is, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Before you do that, it'd be nice the song to be the last thing.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
So anything we've talked about today, apart from anything you hear on the announcements, anything we've talked about today, then and you're interested in, you want to ask questions about, please get in touch. It's really, really important that you remember that if you are in a place of struggle right now, if you're in that dark, shadowy place, some people have different names for it, black dog is a word for it, but sometimes it can feel like everything is very, very permanent. I've been there, and I think that maybe the gents in the room have been in those places. And it feels like it's very, very permanent. It's not permanent. It is not permanent. It's temporary. And just as easily as it can feel like everything's collapsed and your life is disappointment again, you can soon change things around. You can hold on to those things. Sometimes that's what it's about. I think sometimes is looking at things in a different perspective from the one that you're constantly feeling that you have to look at things in. And it can, as Phil was talking about earlier, it might be somebody in your life, a smile, somebody at the petrol station or in the train station, somebody gives you a smile, something that you've done in your day that you can just allow yourself to look at something from a positive sense, And if you are struggling, like I said, you don't have to do it on your own. There's always somebody there and talking can help, but sharing the load. And we're here about many things, but part of it is stopping the stigma around talking about our feelings, our thoughts, our mental health and well-being, okay? So all in it together, if we all help each other, all support each other, no one has to fall down. If you have anything you need from us at all, please get in touch. Thank you very much to Phil again. Thank you, mate. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. It was great to join us, and hopefully maybe see you again sometime on this, maybe on a Monday morning.
If you don't get too many complaints.
As soon as we got rid of that word. So I am going to leave you with the amazing Junior with his great song. So thank you very much. I'm going to go behind the camera now, and get ready for you to. So thank you very much for listening and watching, guys. I'm going to leave you with Junior.
This song is our weekly. It's a what would we call it? It's a theme song, isn't it? It's our theme song, yeah. And this is called "You Never Know What You Got Till It's Gone." It goes like this. You never know what you got till it's gone, and the memory lingers on. And through it all, you gotta be strong. But sometimes you feel you can't carry on. 'Cause life's supposed to be this way. I'll have tomorrow for today. You pick yourself up and you start again. It's when you find out who's your friend. All the people that you know, they all say I told you so. So you pick yourself up and you start again. That's when you find out who's your friends. The one who's there when you're feeling bad, makes you happy when you're sad. You never know what you got till it's gone, and the memory lingers on. Woo! That was hard.
That was our
Oh yeah, first thing in the morning.
last words.
This has been Getting on Track together on Good to Talk. Thanks to Phil, thanks to Nathan. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so we're off the 19th and the 26th, aren't we? So
Yeah.
we'll see you the week after that.
Yeah. Take care.